Who's scruffy looking?
There's a specific kind of disappointment that only long-time Star Wars fans experience, and it is not the loud, explosive kind that comes from a single bad decision. It's the quiet realization that a story no longer understands the era it's meant to inhabit. That realization doesn't hit all at once though. It creeps in slowly, show by show, movie by movie, comic by comic, until you recognize that what you are watching, what you're consuming is not contributing to the history of the galaxy at all. It's just existing alongside it. That is the feeling the Bad Batch series leaves behind. For expanded universe fans, such as myself, the post-Clone Wars era was never a blank space meant to be filled with low-stakes adventures and repetitive character loops. It was one of the most consequential moments in Star Wars' galactic history. Entire populations realized that the war that they thought they had survived was only a prelude for something far worse. This era was not supposed to be comforting, it's not meant to be sentimental, and it's definitely not meant to be safe. The Bad Batch show treats it as all three. From the very first episode, the show frames the fall of the Republic not as a violent rupture as you would expect, but as a prolonged adjustment period. The galaxy feels hesitant, it's unsure, and it's oddly restrained. The Empire does not seize control with frightening efficiency. Instead, it just debates itself endlessly. Clones are not discarded swiftly. They just linger indefinitely. Political consequences remain abstract, and the sense of historical momentum is completely absent as a result. Because in the expanded universe, the defining characteristic of this era was speed. Things happened whether people were ready or not. The Empire did not wait for moral closure or emotional processing. It acted decisively, and without apology. The Bad Batch show replaces that brutality with hesitation, and in doing so, drains the era of all its meaning. One of the most damaging choices the show makes is misunderstanding the tragedy of the clone army itself. In the expanded universe, the clones were tragic because they were uniform. They were interchangeable by design. Their individuality emerged slowly and painfully, often after it no longer mattered. That was the horror of their existence. They were human beings engineered to be tools, and by the time many of them realized it, the galaxy had already moved on without them. The Bad Batch discards this entirely. Instead of individuality emerging through experience or suffering and disillusionment, it is baked in from the start. Clone Force 99 are not subtle deviations. They are exaggerated archetypes. They are visually distinct, emotionally exaggerated, and narratively protected. Their uniqueness is not a hard-won rebellion against their purpose, it's all a gimmick. This reframes the entire Clone Wars retroactively. If clones can simply be different by design, then their mass obedience becomes less tragic and more inconvenient. Of course, if you go by the expanded universe, the regular rank and file were the ones that were brainwashed droids in flesh, while the ARC Troopers and Clone Commandos were the ones that were allowed to have free will and independent thought. The Bad Batch's clones, however, have their roles shift from victims of a system to misunderstood free thinkers who just needed the right environment. The clones were not meant to be quirky heroes. They were meant to be a cautionary tale. The members of the Bad Batch themselves exemplify this problem. They are not shaped by war in any meaningful sense. They do not feel like soldiers who have endured years of attrition, years of loss. They feel like roles assigned in a writer's room. Each character serves a narrow function, and none of them meaningfully evolve beyond it. Hunter is the squad leader and conscience, Tech is exposition, Wrecker is comic relief, and Crosshair is conflict. These roles never blur and they never erode. They never challenge each other in ways that threaten the group's existence. Their disagreements are emotional, not ideological. They argue about feelings and not about the future of the galaxy or their place in it. In the expanded universe, clone conflicts were often devastating because they stemmed from belief. Brothers turned against each other not because of programming, but because they genuinely disagreed about duty, loyalty, and order. Some clones believed the Republic had failed. Some believed the Empire was necessary. Some believed obedience was all they had left. The Bad Batch avoids this complexity entirely. This avoidance is most obvious in how the show handles Crosshair. He should have been the most important character in the series. He should have represented the uncomfortable truth that not all clones would reject the Empire, and that some would do so willingly. At least the ones that have free will and independence. Not out of fear or manipulation, but out of conviction. The show never allows this to stand at all. Every time Crosshair aligns with the Empire, the narrative rushes to soften the implication. He's isolated and he's influenced. He is framed as a victim of circumstance rather than an agent making a conscious choice. The audience is repeatedly reassured that his loyalty is not genuine. The expanded universe trusted its audience to confront uncomfortable realities. It allowed clones to choose authoritarianism because they believed it would bring order. And this is especially terrifying for the rank and file, as they are completely brainwashed and genetically engineered to be obedient to the head of state. It forced fans to grapple with the idea that evil systems are often upheld by people who believe they are doing the right thing. The Bad Batch just refuses to go there at all. The portrayal of the Empire itself suffers from the same cowardice. In the expanded universe, the early Empire was terrifying because it was competent. It did not hesitate, it didn't go into debates about its own legitimacy. It dismantled the Republic efficiently and replaced it with something more centralized overnight. Now, of course, this isn't the case for the Bad Batch. Major policy decisions drag on for seasons. The clone replacement story is treated like a prolonged experiment rather than an inevitable political necessity. High-ranking officials repeatedly fail without consequence. Key assets escape again and again and again, and the military structure feels completely unsure of itself. This is not at all how authoritarian regimes consolidate power. The expanded universe understood that the Empire succeeded because it moved quickly and decisively. The clones were phased out, not because they were ineffective, but they were too susceptible to control by external forces. In the expanded universe, there was a clone rebellion led by the Kaminoans. Now, of course, the Kaminoans bred a new batch of clones that were brainwashed to obey them only and to fight the Empire. The clones had no say in the matter. Stormtroopers were not just soldiers, they were symbols of the new regime, loyal to the Empire instead of each other. The Bad Batch show reduces this ideological transformation into bureaucratic inconvenience. This reduction is emblematic of the show's larger problem. It consistently prioritizes small personal drama over systemic change. The rise of the Empire should feel like a suffocating inevitability, but instead it just feels like a background subplot that occasionally intrudes on the Bad Batch's adventures. In the EU, the galaxy always felt larger than the protagonists. Events happened beyond their awareness. Wars ended and governments fell without the heroes being present. That sense of scale made Star Wars feel like a living history rather than fiction. The Bad Batch show, and Disney Star Wars as a whole, shrinks the galaxy to a handful of recurring locations and faces. The same Imperial officers appear repeatedly. The same underworld contacts resurface endlessly. The same type of planets are revisited with minimal variation, and major transitions occur through exposition rather than depiction. This makes the galaxy stop feeling like a living system and makes it feel like a closed set. This smallness fundamentally alters the tone of the era. The fall of the Republic becomes intimate, personal, and emotionally manageable. It's no longer overwhelming. It's no longer this terrifying period of history. It's something that the protagonists can outrun and in many cases overcome without much of an issue. Omega's role in the series reinforces this problem. She is not written as a character shaped by her environment, but as a stabilizing force meant to prevent the narrative from becoming too bleak. Her presence ensures that every moral dilemma resolves in a way that preserves innocence. She is never allowed to suffer in a way that permanently alters her. She never loses something that cannot be replaced. She never becomes hardened by the realities of the world around her. In the expanded universe, children were not shields against darkness. In the expanded universe, children were not shields against darkness. They were often the ones most affected by it. Their experiences mattered because they were not protected from consequence. Omega's immunity to lasting harm makes the entire narrative safer, and safety is just poison to this era. The show's refusal to embrace finality compounds all of these issues. Characters escape situations that should have had permanent consequences. Death is rare and sanitized. Loss is temporary and nothing feels irreversible. However, in the EU, of course, decisions closed doors. You had characters age, die, you had wars end, and eras passed. The Bad Batch feels designed to just run indefinitely. For Expanded Universe fans, this is not simply a difference in tone, it is a rejection of what made the Expanded Universe and Star Wars compelling in the first place. We did not only fall in love with this universe because it was reassuring, we fell in love with it because it was willing to explore how good intentions collapse into tyranny, and how order is imposed through violence, and how people survive or don't under systems much larger than themselves. The Bad Batch show avoids these themes at every turn. It replaces ideological conflict with sentiment. It replaces historical consequence with personal validation. It replaces tragedy with comfort, essentially. The result is you have a show set in the wrong era, and it's afraid of its own implications. And it's just unwilling to let the galaxy change in ways that matter. Now, for EU fans, the Bad Batch is not offensive because it contradicts law. We know this is an alternate timeline, so that's not the issue here. The problem is that it empties one of the most important periods in Star Wars history of its weight and danger. The whole point of that era, the Dark Times era, the whole meaning of it is just gone. It doesn't tell the story of a galaxy losing itself. It doesn't show us the dark times. It doesn't show us what made this the dark times. It just tells the story of a few characters refusing to engage with that loss. And that's why when the show ends, you end up forgetting about it. The show is just not memorable in any meaningful way. In the expanded universe, the aftermath of the Clone Wars was never about comfort. It was about loss. The loss of the Republic. The loss of moral certainty. The loss of justice and the loss of democracy. It was the moment when the galaxy learned that winning a war does not mean surviving its consequences. The Republic fell, not with a heroic last stand, but with a clause that left millions unsure of what they were now serving or why. The Bad Batch, and Disney Star Wars in general, does not engage with that reality. Instead, it just circles around it. It gestures towards the collapse without ever letting it land. The Empire rises, but never with the terrifying inevitability it once carried in the expanded universe. The clones are displaced, but rarely discarded. The galaxy changes, but never in ways that feel irreversible. Everything is filtered through sentiment and reassurance, and this results in the need to preserve a sense of safety. Star Wars earned its emotional weight because it understood that history is not kind. The systems fall without caring who is crushed beneath them. That people make choices they believe are right, only to realize too late what those choices have built. The expanded universe treated the rise of the Empire as a tragedy of momentum. Once it began, no individual could stop it. They could only hope to survive it. The show strips the Dark Times era of its historical force. It turns the end of the Clone Wars into a prolonged epilogue instead of the opening chapter of a darker age. What really should feel like the tightening of a noose instead feels like an extended holding pattern. This is not because the story is small, it's because it's cautious. Disney Lucasfilm is afraid to let characters make choices that cannot be undone. They're afraid to let the Empire be efficient rather than conflicted. They're afraid to let clones believe in the wrong future for understandable reasons. They're afraid to let the galaxy move forward without its protagonists. The expanded universe was never afraid of these things. It trusted the fans to grapple with discomfort. It trusted the setting to carry weight. And it trusted that Star Wars could be powerful without being gentle. Disney Star Wars does not share that trust. And that is why I think the expanded universe does an immensely better job at showing the rise of the Empire and the Dark Times era way more than Disney Star Wars. The show does not feel like a meaningful addition to Star Wars history. It just feels like a story happening alongside history, insulated from it and just completely untouched by it. When the Clone Wars ended in the expanded universe, the galaxy didn't pause to mourn. It reorganized and it hardened. And really, it just moved on. Disney Star Wars never lets this happen at all, and in doing so, it turns one of the most important eras in Star Wars into something hollow. It's recognizable in aesthetics, it's got familiar language, but empty of the consequences. The Bad Batch is just another example of the many, many missed opportunities that Disney Star Wars had.
Stuck up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Who's scruffy looking?